3 out of the 4 months, and this one was a little bit below. But on average, we're basically headed straight up.
But on that analysis, we got to get rid of that red card. Red card in the World Cup. I mean, this is going to cost us, right? All right, so Kevin, I got to tell you, I love
the
these
red
numbers.
card. I got to tell you, that red card made no sense to me.
It was ridiculous, right? I mean, come on, that could cost the country 40,000 jobs. I mean, it's an outrage. Now, Kevin, how do you justify that? I had Sanjay Mehrotra on this week, Micron. He's got the biggest jobs program ever in this country. We know that every single one of these hyperscalers building things incredibly, and yet the manufacturing number stays unchanged. Shouldn't there be some impact by all this construction? And by the way, the reshoring is on fire, all right? And I don't see that in these numbers either.
Yeah, well, again, what's happening is that they're building the buildings. So we've got a database that we keep at the White House of groundbreakings of new facilities, and you've never seen anything like it. And indeed, the cabinet secretaries and the president, they're headed all over the country almost once a week to a groundbreaking. But the groundbreaking from there to jobs is, 6 months or so. And so right now they're construction workers finishing up the buildings, and by the fall there'll be people plugging in the machines and working the machines. And so I think one reason why we're so optimistic about the future is that we see all these factories being built all over the country.
Kevin, if oil goes down, like I say, it goes to say $50, maybe less, how did the rate cut scenario get totally taken off the table? If we have lower inflation and we have good job growth, well, that's vital. Let's keep it going. Why can't we even think about the idea that, you know what, interest rates are just historically too high? They've got to come down.
Right. We respect the independence of the Fed. We've got a person that the president and I have very high regard for leading the show there. I know that there's some people that were appointed by different administration that maybe tend to have more Keynesian views, but you're exactly right. If we've got a supply side shock that makes GDP grow because we got AI making things more productive and so on, then there's no reason in the world why growth has to cause inflation. And so I actually think that one of the other really good news items in the data today was that wages went up quite a bit. And so that happens when productivity goes up. And when productivity is booming, then that's a point where the Fed has room to do exactly what you're saying. But again, we respect the independence of the Fed and have high confidence that Chairman Warsh is going to be able to convince his colleagues the same thing that you talked about.
What we did have Warsh, of course, on from Sintra talking to Sarah yesterday. Any reflections on what you heard?
Oh, just that he's a absolute classic, made for TV, great for the economy Fed chair. He communicates well, and he's told people exactly what he wants to do. And I think that should help soothe market expectations and also convince the other members of the committee that this is a guy that they should listen to.
Kevin, how do we get a better USMCA deal? I think it's good, but I think the opportunity is right now to be able to make it so it's a little more fair for the United States.
Yeah, well, you share the same impression about it as the president, and the president and Jameson Greer and Howard Lutnick are talking every day to our counterparts to try to make sure that the deal is more fair for the American people.
We were recalling what the president wrote about USMCA yesterday, back in 2019. It'll be the best and most important trade deal ever made. Good for everybody, farmers, manufacturers, energy unions. We'll finally end our country's worst trade deal, NAFTA. What do you think happened in the interim?
Well, I think that right now we're still in the midst of a negotiation, and that sometimes things move back and forth during negotiation, but we're confident that in the end, when we get it across the finish line, it'll be a great deal for the American people.
But I'm trying to figure out where are the sticking points. I mean, for instance, lumber. We had a great lumber industry in this country. We don't have a great lumber industry in this country anymore. I mean, can't we just target some of these industries that have been wiped out in this country?
Well, that's exactly what's going on in the negotiation. So there are a lot of things a lot of industries in the U.S. that have been harmed by dumping activity. You mentioned lumber. We know that in Canada, they basically let you chop down the trees and they don't charge you for where you are. And so that basically if you're on public lands, you get to chop down the trees for free. Whereas in the U.S., then there's a fee. And so therefore our lumber manufacturers are at a disadvantage. And those are the kind of things that the trade deal negotiators are talking about every day.
Now, I know that it's really a Commerce Department issue, but I just want to get your sense. You know, we've got a Sam Altman saying maybe the government should take a stake in AI. We've got the government just cleaned up on that Intel stake. Should the government be ringing the register on an Intel, and should it be taking a stake in the AI companies?
Well, I mean, the Intel situation was, an extreme one. We had the CHIPS money, and President Trump's view is we're not going to give away free taxpayer money without having something in return. And I think the Intel people were thrilled that the already allocated CHIPS money went into Intel and really, in some sense, made that company saved that company from a very difficult situation it was in. And having the equity has turned out to be one of the best investments for the American people the government has ever made. But I think those circumstances were somewhat unique, and it's an open question how often we do things like that again.
But do you think a stake in OpenAI, is that a live discussion?
I think that we're talking to all the big AI companies and seeing what they think about what they could do to share their upside with the American people. But one thing we are seeing is that the productivity gains from AI are already going into wages, already going into profits, and so they've been very, very good for the economy.
National security, defense, cybersecurity, these are all big issues. If the government had a stake, I think the government would be much more effective against the Chinese. How about that?
I mean, you could argue for government stakes, and I think the president understands the benefit of government stakes. And then when you're thinking about the government stake, you also have to think through, well, what happens if there's some future administration that is run by, say, a Mamdani, and he's got all this government stakes and things, what's he going to do about it? And so to the extent that you take government stakes, you have to build in safeguards to make sure that the stake is valuable and serves the American people, not some short-term political objective.
Mamdani, huh? They haven't really thought of him as taking that level, get to that level, Kevin. That's a new thing. I hadn't thought that you thought he might go up that high. Democratic socialist.
Well, he can't,
well.
Right? But I'm saying if you take a person with his ideology, then that's a thing that we have to pay attention to.
Yeah, people are watching Colorado 01. I think there could potentially be 7 DSA members of Congress come the fall. Do you think that's a response to current policy?
Actually, I think it's a response to what people have been taught in these crazy liberal universities. And
so only recent college grads are voting?
No, but I mean, it's been that way. It's been that way for a very long time, since even when I was a professor at Columbia in the 90s, professor at NYU in the 2000s, that you could see that most of your colleagues were literally socialists. And that if I came out, as you guys know, I've been on your show many, many times, if I came out and said something that celebrated free markets, then people would accuse me of being crazy. I remember Larry Summers said I was a liar or stupid or both, just for supporting free enterprise. And so those are the people that have been trading all these people. Yeah, there are all these people that are now voting for these crazy people, and they've been trained to do so by our universities. But that's something that this administration is fixing 100%. We've taken on the universities, we've taken on DEI, and we're really, I think, extremely hopeful that our efforts are going to make it so that people are trained once again to be patriots, to believe in America.
I see. So the voters are getting trained. All right, Kevin. We'll save the rest of that for another time. But thanks for the help on the job.
Thanks, guys.